Hey YouTube! So if you're familiar with my channel, then you know I have been on the hunt for a bold eyeshadow palette for too long. I don't understand why this is such a difficult concept. Some palettes have failed me, some have been good, and I thought that I would give a chance to see what they have. The Urban Decay Heavy Metals palette. I bought this with my own money. Partly because I did have some UD kickbacks. If you guys are signed up with that program, it's pretty rad. And I thought, why not? I read the return policy and I thought if it doesn't work out, fine, I'll return it. And here it is, and I have all of my thoughts. I have played around with every single color in this palette before coming on camera so I can give you guys a real thorough review. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to start with some basics. I'm going to go over the palette. I'm going to show you guys a whole bunch of looks that I made with it, and I will put them all in the corner so you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about it. And then I'll tell you the pros and the cons of this palette, and hopefully it will help you to figure out if this is something worth adding to your collection. So to start, the packaging for this palette is very, very, very unusual. I really don't know what I make of it. I just don't know. I'm on the fence about how I feel about this packaging. And the palette inside is, it completely slides out and it's flat. It kind of reminds me of the original Urban Decay Spectrum. I guess what the intent of this to be was for you to feel like a painter. Somebody had said that they thought this was for mixing, but this is a mirror, so that doesn't, I don't know. I don't really love the packaging. It's not the worst packaging I've ever encountered, but I definitely don't love the packaging. Inside of this palette, you get one side that is a lot of really bold colors, and then the other side is going to be your more neutral colors. Now the formula on this is supposed to be revolutionary for Urban Decay. I am a little over revolutionary eyeshadow. I don't feel like it's going well as a whole. I've had too many palettes lately not work out. Something terrible happened with the Subculture palette. I was a little terrified that this was going to be that new awful formula of intense pigmentation that's awful to work with. I'm happy to tell you it's not. I noticed from the ingredients this seems to be a very high silicone formula, and I think that is contributing to this really giving gorgeous, gorgeous swatches. I'll put those in the top as well. The swatches are stunning. But I did find that the swatches are not completely, for all colors, quite true to life. And one thing that is particularly strange about this palette in comparison to most modern palettes is that this is entirely shimmers. So you're going to need to bring in another palette for your transition shades, your matte white shade. I don't think this is a big deal. At this point in my life, I'd rather have that because, as I said earlier, I'm on the hunt for shimmers. So this doesn't bother me, but you don't use it entirely on its own. And I do want to take a moment to tell you guys some of my favorite colors from this palette, as well as colors that did not work out for me. So I particularly love the blues and the greens in this palette, which is why I chose this look today for you guys. This is the colors Dive and Amp. Dive on the inner corner of my lid, and then Amp on the outer corner of my lid. They're just so incredibly stunning and bold. This green is also really amazing, Mullet. And somehow, shockingly, I love aluminum. I didn't know I would. This ended up being one of my favorite colors to play around with, and I really love aluminum mixed with ground used as a liner. A couple other colors that I really love from this palette. I love Spandex. I did not think that I would. It's this kind of very dark purple, but it works so well as a liner. And then also After Party, which is easily dupeable, but really stunning. The thing about this palette, I find that you really don't need a primer with these colors, which is amazing. That never happens. But it's completely optional. You get just as good of a look without a primer as with. I do think you get more wear time if you use a primer, but you don't need anything fancy to make these work. Any primer will work with these. And then some colors I was a little more disappointed with. This color right here, Metalhead, swatches so beautifully, but it just doesn't apply all that well. I'm not really sure where the pigmentation goes. In the traditional, purples are hard to formulate fact. It's just not that great. Punk Rock's not that great either. It's a really subtle pink. I'll show you guys a look that I made with these. I was just really disappointed with that look. But in fairness, Urban Decay does have an example using these colors, and it looks the same. It's a very light look. Now, in terms of comparing this palette to other palettes that I own, Urban Decay says that this is a brand new formula for them, but I'm going to tell you that, in my personal opinion, I think it is very, very similar to the Naked Heat. I do find the shade Dirty Talk to be similar, but not the same to After Talk. I do think they put a lot of effort into making sure these were not completely the same as these, which in some ways is really good because you can definitely use the mattes in here along with that palette. They'll go together really, really well. They're not at all the same palette, but they play together quite nicely. In my opinion, the palette that is most similar to the Heavy Metals formula is my Juvia's Place Masquerade palette. This is the only palette that I still own from Juvia's Place. This is the one that works out the best for me. But this feels so much like the new Heavy Metals palette. To me, this is even similar in concept. If you look at it this way, you get the neutrals on this side and then the colors on this side. There's a lot of similarities in these guys. Now I'm going to tell you guys, if you're thinking about buying the Heavy Metals for the purple, don't buy this one instead. This is a better purple, but it's still a little different in formula. While they are extremely similar, I will say that I think the Heavy Metals palette leans a bit darker, which I think it really makes sense with the name. Considering they chose the name Heavy Metals, I think they're going for more of a bright colors mixed with darkness. It would go with the name. And just for some quick swatch comparisons for you guys, this is from the Heavy Metals palette, this is the shade After Party, and this is Calabar from Juvia's Place Masquerade. And then I also have Metalhead from the Heavy Metals palette compared to the shade Makita. Makita is definitely better than this one. These are comparable and very similar as well. But what most stands out to me about comparing these guys is how much they feel the same. There's also a fair bit of similarities between the Huda Beauty Rose Gold palette and this new Heavy Metals palette, which, you know, for me, this is a good thing because I do really like this palette. And then for some comparisons to the Rose Gold palette, you can see the main difference is that the Rose Gold is a lot chunkier. So this is Rose Gold 24K, and this is the Urban Decay Twisted. And then this one is Rose Gold Blessed compared to Glory from the Heavy Metals palette. Alright guys, let's wrap this video up with some pros and some cons. First of all, pros, this is very unique colors. I really like that they are dark versions. I do feel like most of these are unique to my collection. I really love the new formula. I think it's amazing that you don't need to have a primer. I guess I would say this is a fantastic palette to get for somebody as a gift. Maybe for somebody who only has a small amount of palettes in their collection, this would be such a great addition. It would give them all the neutral shimmers that they need, as well as fun, bold options. And it's not tricky to use. It's actually a very easy palette to use, in contrast to a lot of the more recent palettes that have come out that have a learning curve. I don't think this one does. I also think this would be great for anybody who is looking to introduce some bold colors into your collection. The colors that are in here that are bold are definitely amazing, but it's not too many of them. It's really not. And I also want to emphasize, I think this palette is really fun for giving you liner options. A lot of the pictures that Urban Decay used for promotions for this include a lot of detail and experimentation, and I think this would be such a good addition for somebody who's looking for more from their makeup. To me, the fact that I'm saying this would be a great beginner's palette as well as great for somebody who is looking to explore almost covers everybody, except it kind of doesn't. So let me get into the cons. Now, for as much as I love this formula, I still don't think it's that unique. It's very similar to Juvia's Place, which has been around for a while. I think a lot of people have a lot of those palettes now, and to be honest with you, if you own multiple Juvia's Place palettes, you may not need this. I definitely think there are a lot of dupes for these colors, and if not dupes, colors that are very similar. I think that if you have a very big collection, you may end up getting this and having it sit, because it is going to be one of those kind of palettes where you have to kind of plan it out, you'll have to grab something else to accompany it. If you're not the kind of person who likes working with 2 palettes at a time, you might not like this at all. And then of course, I do think it's a con the way they opted to package this. Yes, it's unique, but I personally don't like the packaging. I think it's not very practical. You could travel with this palette, but I'm probably not going to. And given that I'm saying that, it probably means that this is going to be a palette that I use in specific circumstances, mostly when I'm trying to be experimental myself. I guess I'm saying this isn't really an everyday palette. And then also on my list, I do want to comment on the fact that the colors are a little darker on the eyes than they appear. I don't think this has to be a con, but at the same time, I was surprised that the swatches didn't really line up with how these colors applied on my eyes. Now for most colors this means a little darker. For a couple colors that I mentioned earlier, this means a little lighter. For some reason, it's just not quite true to swatch. For me personally, I like it. I'm going to use it a lot. I'm going to have a lot of fun getting experimental with this. I don't care at all that I have to pull in other palettes. And today I pulled in the Viseart palette. Actually, I will list in the description box every detail of all of the looks that I used, just in case you're interested. But yeah, I really enjoy this. I'm certainly not going to be returning it, even though I did take the time to read through the return policy just in case. I like it. It's going to be an addition to my collection. It's not going to be used every day. Alright guys, I hope you found this review helpful. If you did, please give this video a like. Let me know in the comments if you're going to be picking this one up. Thanks so much for watching this video. Peace out, YouTube.